On this episode of The State of Happiness, we have Dr. Blum. He is a chiropractor and an energy healer who's been in practice for over 40 years. He's here in San Diego, and he's my doctor too, and we're going to talk about ways to regain your energy and love your body. Stay tuned.
You know, Leslie, as a woman business leader, sometimes life burns me out. I feel like I've forgotten who I am. I'm stressed, putting other people's needs before my own, my company, my colleagues, even my clients. I feel like there's no me time.
I know exactly how that is, which is why we partnered with We Are Creative Adventurers to develop a 5-day women leadership retreat in Playa Viva, Mexico. This retreat offers you the opportunity to disconnect from all the distractions and reconnect with your intuition. Come find yourself with Leslie Inc.
So you're saying during the 5 days, I'll learn your proven techniques to grow my business, change my relationship with money, manage stress, and realign my values to balance work and family life?
You will leave renewed and recharged. Yes, come find yourself with Leslie Inc.
Email workhappy@leslieinc.org for details on reserving your spot today. Space is limited, so email workhappy@leslieinc.org to reserve your spot.
Welcome to the State of Happiness. I'm your host, Leslie Juvin-Acker, Chief Happiness Officer at Leslie Inc., where we provide solutions for finding happiness for stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed senior-level managers, executives, and entrepreneurs. The State of Happiness podcast offers you conversation, inspiration, and ideas for helping you increase your happiness in the areas of your personal relationships, your career, your abundance, and your emotional well-being. So come along with us on this episode, and we'll help you get the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to help you find your own state of happiness. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Blum.
Well, thank you, Leslie. It's great to be here. I am really thrilled to be on your program.
Well, I'm so happy because I know that you have made such an important difference in my life and my husband's life, and in such a short amount of time in which we've met, because we met through Dr. Michelle Dexter, who's on an earlier episode of The State of Happiness. So if you're listening, check that episode out with Dr. Michelle Dexter. But let's talk about how we met. I think it was a wonderful opportunity to just share that and our initial meeting together as I actually went in. So let me start the show with that. Essentially, how we met was Dr. Michelle Dexter, and she just, after recording a podcast with me, said, you know, Leslie, I think you need to meet my friend, Dr. Blum. He's a chiropractor and energy healer, and I think he could help you. And I have to say, Dr. Blum, it was the perfect opportunity because for months I had been dreaming about bringing a chiropractor onto the show because I am a big believer in chiropractors. So yeah, it was just a wonderful opportunity. And let's talk about the story with Anna, because that's pretty much what happened that got me to see you.
Well, yes. Basically, first off, let me just say Dr. Dexter, Michelle Dexter, is a wonderful friend. And when I spoke to your assistant, Anna, I just wanted to give her a little sample of what I do. And I also do distance healing. So I ran a little menu of my own, like a computer menu, and found an emotional thing. So I fixed that. But she didn't seem all that impressed. She kept complaining about her shoulder pain. So I immediately fixed her shoulder pain, and she got such a terrific result. She started raving about it. At first she said, oh, this must be hypnosis or psychosomatic or something. I said, well, it could be, but I don't think so. Anyway, that's how that went. And then when you heard the story, both you and your husband called in to make an appointment, and it's been terrific. Let's just say for me it was a terrific experience.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I remember Anna telling me this story, and she said, I was telling him about my neck because that was where she had a sharp pain. And she said she couldn't remember anything that you said except that the pain instantly went away. And I was in my office. She ran to me and said, "You have to listen to this story, Leslie. This is unbelievable. You really need to go and see him." And I immediately did. I think I wrote you within that hour to make the appointment, and we came in, fortunately, I think within the week. So let's go into that first session. Fortunately, you had time for Frank and I. Tell us, what did you observe with Frank? What did you observe with me? Considering that I'm an energy healer as well. And just kind of walk us through your process a little bit.
Well, it was one of the most fascinating experiences I've ever had. But anyway, Frank had several complaints, mostly in his mid-back and neck, but he was a bit macho about it, and wouldn't tell me the level of pain he was experiencing. But you're an energy healer too, and at the time we talked about it, I just kind of checked in with him and found that he was giving me numbers a little too low, and so I told him what the right numbers were, and he had to admit that was true. And you checked in too, from what I gathered. But anyway, I started working with him after doing a very thorough exam and fixed most of the things he had. And unfortunately, he was having a lot of spasming or tightness between his shoulder blades. So I used a correction that I had innovated myself to get those muscles to release. I think it was complete circulation. Every factor of circulation is tied into that particular correction. And when the oxygen and blood were getting into those muscles, then they could relax. And he did notice a good difference. Now, when working with you, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. You started talking about being able to see energy fields, and I can too. I don't usually see them in color, but you were looking at it, and I just said, well, the energy field ends right here, and I held my hand right to the edge of his energy field.
Yeah.
And I think that blew you away a little bit because you of course were watching it, and you knew that I hit, the basic end of the field right there. And so you knew I could see it too, because I wouldn't have been that right on.
Exactly.
Correct?
Absolutely. I have to say, I was pretty blown away because for my whole life, I've seen auras and always seen colors and didn't know that other people couldn't see them. So I just assumed we all could see the colors around each other. And then when eventually I realized, I'm seeing something pretty unique that very rarely anyone can see, I come in and you intuitively, I don't know how you do it, I don't know your process, but I'm eager to learn. You began to feel the energy, but also doing physical examination. I mean, the most thorough physical examination I've ever been in my life. I don't think I've ever seen any chiropractor, any doctor take the time to really check in with your history, how you're feeling, the level of pain, all the areas of your body, all the joints, and the limbs, the circulation, your energy level. It was the most thorough that I've ever seen. I was so impressed, just as you are as a practitioner, as a doctor. But then when I started to see Frank's energy as you began making observations and little corrections here and there, as Frank's energy grew, and I said, oh, wow, his energy is getting bigger. And you stuck your hand out exactly where it ended. For me, it was like, okay, so I'm not the only one in the world who really can see this on an accurate level. So it was really amazing for me. I'm so impressed.
Well, thank you. I got a real kick out of you because you were talking about this. I'm going to jump to the end and then come back to talking about how I worked on you, but you were telling me about my process a little bit. You saw all these little helpers, spiritual entities that honestly I'm not particularly aware or seeing them, but I got it. And it just, for me, it was fascinating and a kick,
Right. Well, what happened was that I didn't see them until I actually sat on your examination table. That was the moment where I sat down, and then all of a sudden I was just surrounded energetically and visually. I could see it like in my mind's eye. Thousands of spirit guides coming to assist you. Some that I've never even known of before, but it was just impressive for me. I'm speechless almost as I described this, but it felt like thousands of people coming to help, and you were just channeling this helping energy, and it feels like you do it so intuitively and so naturally, that you're so well practiced and versed in your healing work that it's almost like you don't really have to go through so much preparation. It's like you're just instantly channeled to these healing energies.
Well, I got that. I just wasn't aware that I had all these entities around me. But anyway, when I was working with you, to get back to your original question, you do have a lot of body aches and pains, and yes, we did help you with those. But you also complained quite a bit about chronic fatigue or adrenal exhaustion, and I mean, honestly, you were such a animated person. If anyone of your audience has met you in person, you are fascinating to watch because you just are, But anyway, but the thing is you put out a high level of energy, and I can understand that at some points you may feel drained,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So basically, I don't think we got into it earlier in this conversation, but when I was at age 30, I suffered from adrenal exhaustion, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, just a whole bunch of stuff. And basically, I was in trouble, so I started studying all kinds of kinesiological muscle testing techniques.
Wow.
My main one is total body modification, TBM for short. And as I started learning that technique and others, I started to really understand and get some help from other practitioners and such to get my body working better. And I was slowly recovering, but I also was learning this stuff. And at some point, I got so knowledgeable in these different techniques, I was able to start innovating my own techniques to correct specific aspects of the problems that just wasn't being touched by other techniques. So yes, we did help you with most of your aches and pains. Honestly, I believe any chiropractor who can adjust decently could help you. But the point is we also got into your chronic fatigue issue. And do you remember when I basically checked your cellular communication, that it was at like 40%?
Yes, it was very low.
Well, 40% really isn't that bad. I've dealt with people who were between 5 and 10% and such.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it can get bad. And honestly, if cellular communication dips to like 5% or below, you're literally on your way out. You're dying.
Oh my God. So tell us a little bit more. What is cellular communication for people who don't know what that is?
Well, I would say no one in your audience knows it, because I doubt that anyone kind of talks about that. So it's an unknown entity or factor. But basically, it's not the adrenals, a level of how the adrenals are functioning. Mm-hmm. It's actually how the other cells of the body are communicating with the adrenals. Oh. And basically the number we get is an index of how well or how good your energy is at that specific moment.
Right.
And generally, like in your case, it was 40%. So that means 40% of your cells were functioning normally. They showed up for work.
Right.
The other 60% stayed in bed. They didn't show up.
How lazy.
Exactly. Well, but then I did a few corrections and things and fixed your sugar, fixed your water. I think you were dehydrated also.
I was.
And did complete energy. That's another technique I invented. But when we retested your cellular communication when I was done, I'm pretty happy if we can get someone up to 100% or at least up to 90.
Right.
But in your case, it went up to 120%, which was a 300% increase.
Yeah.
And I know people are saying, well, gee, how could you be functioning at more than 100%?
Right.
But it's kind of like if you tuned the car really well and got everything really working good and everything was firing good, it may go above its normal parameters.
Right.
Basically, that's what we did. We got you kind of fired up like a really well-tuned engine. But you tell me, what did you experience after I did that?
Well, I went in and, it was so funny because I think a couple of days leading up to us meeting, I was in the car with Frank and I said, do you ever feel sometimes trapped in your body that you just don't feel good or you feel really tired and that you really have to rest and you kind of feel dragging? And he's like, yeah, sometimes I feel that way. And my husband, you think I'm super animated. My husband's always on the road. He's up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't go to bed until after me, which could be 10 or 11 o'clock at night. He's always going. We're very high energy people. And when I met you, I felt good, but I still felt achy. I felt like, I was just tired. And, sometimes we confuse being tired with sad. And I felt maybe I was sad. But then immediately after I started working with you, I just started to feel so much better, so much energetic. And I noticed even more and more improvement, even though I walked out there feeling fantastic as if I was in high school. I felt like more myself. I felt like my happy self, my fearless self, my energetic self, my optimistic self, my hopeful self. And I think if anything, I would have to say not just my physical feels amazing. I feel like I'm back on top of my life again and I feel super, super good. So 10 across the board, I feel amazing.
Well, that is, I'm practically speechless. You do that to me a lot. It's like it's kind of hard to respond to such high accolades.
Right. Well, I have to say, I like I said, I was looking for months for a chiropractor, and I have another one that I went to, and he does the basic back cracking, neck and spine, but he doesn't do anything like you do. And I've never met anyone like you. And I've lived in France, so we have socialized healthcare, had lots of access to healthcare, but nothing like this ever in the world, my whole entire life. And I have to say, I'm a believer in your total body modification, your muscle testing techniques, which I also use, your cellular communication techniques, your energy program, everything. Like I believe it all because you have to try it for yourself. And that's why it's so important that I bring you on today, because people need to know about you and what you can teach them about taking care of their bodies and finding their max level of themselves so they can do everything that they want to do in life and not feel trapped in their body. So with that said, how would you recommend someone who's like me, maybe they're an entrepreneur, maybe they're a busy professional, or maybe just a busy mom or dad trying to keep everything together? What would you recommend for people who dispense a lot of energy?
Well, first off, Leslie, I have to agree with you. You would be a good candidate for my Triple Your Energy program. And basically what I do is I teach people how to do enough of the techniques that I do. Obviously, I can't teach them the 35 years of experience I've got, but I sometimes use the word dumb it down, but it's not really dumbing it down. It's just really simplifying how I do it, even if it's not to the same level that I would do it. Because if you know how to fix the problem, and you have the knowledge, then you can fix it as many times as you need it. Doesn't that necessarily have to be the blue plate special or the golden level? Maybe you're doing it at the bronze or silver level if you want to use the Olympic medals analogy. But the point is if you can fix it yourself, then you don't have to sit around and suffer being, as you say, kind of locked in your body and not being able to function, because you can correct some of the problems.
Right.
Some of the things that I do is I teach, first off, I have to show the person how to muscle test and self-muscle test. And I'm not the biggest expert on supplements and foods, and I don't really have to be. But I could take a supplement, put it on the person's body, and if I get a weak muscle, I know immediately that they're allergic to that product. Right. I can teach people how to ask several questions and get a yes/no response to find out if they need the supplement, how many to take, how good that particular product is for them, that type of thing, so that they can do that for themselves. They can do that while walking through, say, Sprouts or Whole Foods, put the product on the body and do a simple muscle test and ask several questions. But, you know, if the first thing you do is put it on your body and you get a weak muscle, put it back on the shelf, you know. Right. That particular product isn't going to do you any good. Right. You know, the funny thing is I'll go to, like, Sprouts and go to, like, the gluten-free area, and about half of those products, when I put them on my body, test weak. They're terrible. Wow. They may not have gluten in them, but they might have gliadin, which is a similar molecule, or they might have GMOs or high fructose corn. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. You put it on your body, you get a weak muscle, don't take it. Wow. But also, I could teach people how to fix their sugar problem. I teach people how to fix chronic fatigue. To get more of a boost, I teach them how to fix the energy circuits. And also there are other factors like, I think you asked me even last Saturday when I saw you, what can people do to help themselves? And most of the things that people read about, they're right. But, you know, like, for instance, there are a lot of fad food diets, so you don't really know what to do. But if you could put the food on your body, you know at least that food is good for you if it's strong. Right. There's a lot of fads in exercise. Now, exercise is very important, but you see, in my program, I touch on things like stress reduction and exercise and sleep and how to fix things when you're going out the bottom. Particularly when you're going out the bottom, I invented a correction that I call chronic maladaptive stress response. Wow. And of course, you're saying to yourself, "What the hell is that?" Most people kind of know what it is because it's kind of like being pre-diabetic or having syndrome X and all of those other things. Basically, it's like when you're putting weight on around the middle and your thymus gland or your immune system is dropping out the bottom and your cortisol is going out the top, or maybe your growth hormone is dropping out. All of these happen when you're in like pre-diabetic and all of that, or even an actual diabetic. So all of those things are bad, but the correction chronic maladaptive stress response kind of resets all of that so you can start all over. And I jokingly say, do it again, because just like you, I'm a lot like you in that way. And so basically I fix it and then I just do it again because life is too darn demanding. And, you know, and what I experienced, like when I was 30 years old and having chronic fatigue and adrenal exhaustion and fibromyalgia, but didn't have the tools to fix it, is that life keeps going even when you can't, and it just passes you by. And basically, you had mentioned that you kind of felt a little negative or depressed at times. It's because when you can't function at the level you want to, life just kind of passes you by, and that's depressing.
Right. Absolutely.
It just is. And I'm not saying that as an outsider. I mean, I experienced all of this stuff. And that's why I'm real passionate about fixing chronic fatigue and adrenal exhaustion. It's not that I just focus on that. As you can see, I fix a lot of things. Right. But I'm passionate about that because I experienced it, and it's like a nightmare that you just don't wake up from, you know?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I know exactly how that is. And a lot of my clients experience that. You know, so many of them are busy and they want to achieve so much, but then they get tired. And even mothers who just had babies, you know, they're not at their state. I can just think of a few people that I know who recently had babies who would be great candidates to see it because they want to get back on track so they can feel normal, feel like their normal selves, take care of their busy families, get back to work. And this is a part of what we talk about at Leslie Inc. and all of our work is helping families get back to work, but also manage the lives that they love. But let's go forward. Tell us more about your work and process, because you are not the typical chiropractor. Tell us what makes you so unique, and what will people experience by working with you?
Well, basically, it's the things I've studied. Most of these techniques and things had me look at physiological corrections, emotional corrections, just all kinds of things that needed to be worked on, emotional, spiritual. So by doing all of those kinds of things, I was able to learn how to fix a lot of stuff. But as I said, I got so conversant in using these different techniques that I was able to come up with new combinations or actually invent things on my own. In fact, I've taught at the TBM research seminar that was just last month in Las Vegas. I've taught at probably about a dozen of those over the years. I taught at the Natural Healing Technique seminar in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Randy Frank, Dr. Frank's son. See, my mentor is Dr. Victor Frank, but his son Randy Frank developed another technique called natural healing, which is really an offshoot of TBM. It's just very advanced work. TBM is like a complete technique. You have points to affect just about every organ and gland in the body, emotional things, pathological things, just a whole bunch of stuff. Randy decided, well, TBM's got that covered. So he just put into natural healing the things that he wanted to focus on and get very advanced at. But he never called his technique a complete technique. If you want a complete technique, take TBM in its various modules, and then you learn how to fix the different aspects. But I'm not knocking natural healing. What I'm saying is it's more advanced, but focused on different problems and things. Right. And then for me, since I'm not really teaching a technique class or to other doctors per se, at least not a lot, when I do these advanced seminars, this one in Las Vegas was called TBM Alive, but basically it's a research seminar. The doctors who are doing the TBM technique, for instance, get together, and those of us who have innovated or invented some new stuff would teach some of that stuff. Like I invented found a point, an energy point that I call energy system point. I taught them how to correct adhesions and particularly fibromyalgia. These are a few of the things that I taught. I invented a correction called Complete Brain, which can help with things like brain fog and such. It's just, different things that came to my attention, and I did a little bit of research, found something, or had sometimes I call it a download. I don't really know where some of these things came from.
Oh.
They just came through me or to me. You say I've got a lot of helpers out there. Maybe they conspired and gave me something, and I didn't even realize it wasn't mine,
Right.
It came from somewhere, but I don't really know,
That's amazing. I want to tell you something that I didn't tell you because I was saving for the podcast. Over 10 years ago, in 2009, I was living in South Florida, and I had a dream. And actually, I was sleeping and I woke up in total body paralysis. And my great grandmother came to me in a dream, and she told me some numbers. And I said, oh, it's the lotto numbers. And she's like, I guess you could say so. She was like a blue hologram. And then she disappeared and went back to sleep. And then inside that dream, I actually saw this place. It was a very wooded forest, and in front of me was like a football field. And in the wooded forest, I know this is a weird dream, but bear with me. And in the wooded forest, I saw like trees with faces kind of yawning and sleepy and kind of bored, but they've been there forever. So they were there. And then I looked to my left, and there were different entities, different types of people, but one of them looked like the people in Avatar. And I think this was just at the time, right before Avatar came out, around that time. And there was like this tall blue looking person. And I said, well, what are you guys doing here? I'm like, where am I? And they're like, oh, well, in this dimension, we have wars, but we don't destroy everything like you do. We just cut out a bit of land and we fight it out there. And so that way we respect nature. And I said, okay, well, that's fair enough. And then I said, well, how do you guys fight? And the blue being said to me, well, there are different points in your body and you can tap different sequences in the body to either heal them or kill them. And of course, this is before I ever knew what anything was. I didn't even know what acupuncture really, really was. I mean, I knew that you had different meridians, but I didn't know that there were points. I didn't know anything about tapping. I didn't know anything about meridians. So when this being told me that, and I saw you doing what you do, because you kind of tap on different points in the body and you kind of wave your hand around the body, which for me, is like working on micro chakras. I had that flashback to that dream I had. And it was almost like 10 years later that I finally saw what this blue being was telling me all about, that you could heal by touching sequences on the body, beyond EFT and tapping if you're listening, but really these points. And I felt like, wow, this is finally, I'm seeing what I had been told over 10 years ago, and it actually works. And I'm not joking. When I saw Frank, his energy was changing, but even his countenance was changing. The look and expression on his face, he wasn't in pain, he wasn't tired, he looked happy, as if when we first met. And it was so emotional for me that I started crying, because I couldn't help him fix everything that he has, because I don't have that permission, or he wasn't ready or whatever. And to see such an important change with the very simple techniques that you do, powerful yet simple, I was so impressed by that. And it really was, for me, this awakening to, oh my God, there's even more healing modalities out there to help people get back to their state of happiness.
Well, we all try. I mean, well, I don't know. I've got to be careful not to badmouth the medical profession, at least not on the air, But the point is with all the things going on these days, like with high fructose corn syrup, GMOs, hydrogenated fats, pesticides, and unfortunately, the list just goes on and on and on. People need a lot of help, and unfortunately, when you're dealing with a medical profession that focuses on treating symptoms but not getting people well, we're living in a bit of a desert, and people need the water. It's like, they need their health, and they need some help. And I can't do everything. There's a lot of places where people can fight the good fight, but I feel like I'm doing my part in what I do just by doing what I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's do a sample over the air if you want. We could do the distance healing. We can talk about what I've been through, or whatever you want to talk about, actually. And then after that, let's go into how people can reach out to you. Would you like to do that?
That would be great. Do you have a specific pain or anything we can focus on for right now?
I got something in my right hip right now.
Okay, now right hip, it can get confusing. Are you talking about the front, the hip joint, the ball and socket, or are you talking about your sacroiliac, which is more off to the side and in the back?
I would say probably the latter one.
Okay, so the hip joint, the ball and socket.
No, the latter being like the sacroiliac.
Oh, the sacroiliac. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it painful on the right, left, or both?
It's only on the right side of my body, a little front side and to the back.
Okay, so I just checked. Your right sacroiliac is rotated forward. So if you feel those two big bumps on your pelvis in the front, the right one is a little lower than the left one.
Okay. Alrighty, got it.
Is it lower on the right than the left one?
I think it is, actually.
Okay, so I'm going to put the phone down, but I'll try to keep my voice close enough
Okay.
so that you can hear me. Okay. Okay, so I fixed the right one. Let me fix the left one. Okay. So right now I'm getting both sides are strong. First off, you probably, let's see, region.
Oh my God, this is so
It's
weird.
fixed. You should be feeling less pain, but repalpate, because I'm not there. Did they level off a little bit,
Let's see.
or more so? In other words, are they more level to each other?
Yeah, they do. They do actually. That is so weird. That is so cool. And actually, as you were doing that, it felt as if there was like a psychic hand going on my right hip. And then I'm not joking. I don't feel the pain anymore. I don't feel it.
Okay. Well, the hips were rotated, and I corrected that rotation. If you remember when you were in the office and I turned you on your side and did those side rolls right and left?
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember.
Basically, that's what I did. But I did it energetically because you're not here for me to do it physically.
So do you do it with your hands and your imagination? How do you do that?
Well, first off, I put my hand on my own hips and rotated them until I got a weak muscle in one direction or the other. Then I have a little menu that I do to see if it was physical, structural, emotional. In your case, it was physical, but it could have just as easily been an emotional issue or whatever. But
Right.
then I did a little correction, and then I checked the other side. It also needed a similar correction, but in the opposite way. That was like the right side was lower, the left side was higher. So, but basically, I did an energetic correction for both sides individually.
That's amazing.
And then asked you if you noticed any change in the rotation. Apparently, they did level some.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't see that from here, but they did level. And then you noticed less pain because basically there's less stress on those joints when they're more level and you don't need the correction. When you do need the correction, it can be symptomatic.
Right.
But you only felt pain on the right side. The left side needed a correction too.
Right. Well, I'm feeling it, and I'm squishing my hip area, and it actually went away. I just started my cycle this morning, so and then all of a sudden my hip started aching, and I thought, oh, maybe it had to do with that, but actually, no. It actually feels just fine now. That's amazing. Do you start by doing some kind of Reiki opening channel, or you just start doing it with your own special technique?
I just start and I mentally run a menu, like a computer menu, to see what needs to be fixed. In this instance, you told me where the pain was, so I just went to the hip and rotated it forward and back. And when I got a weak muscle, I saw that it needed a correction, so I ran my menu, found what I needed to correct, and then corrected it.
Wow, that is so special. If you're listening to this, I'm not joking. Like, I don't feel any pain anymore over here. I have the cramping because that's my time of the month. But if you're listening, this is very personal. But honestly, it feels really just fine now.
Well, I do have a correction for PMS. So
oh, really?
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is very useful.
Okay, I'm doing the correction right now.
Okay. That is so wild.
Okay, that's done. Any other hormones need to be fixed? Anything else? Okay. You might notice almost immediately that the cramping is less or maybe even gone.
Yeah. You know what it feels like? It feels like somebody just put a hot pad on my abdomen.
Okay, well, but
that feels so cool.
But it's kind of cool to be able to do it at a distance. When I was in Las Vegas, they actually put a panel together of about a dozen people who do distance healing, who were there because the group I was with, they're pretty far out. Now there were about 50 people in the room, but we put together a panel of 12 people. And what they basically described was they do it one of two ways. Either they use their own body as a surrogate, or they can work on another person as a surrogate, or they just visualize in front of them a hologram of the person that they're working on, and they work on the hologram.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
I've done both, but I've been doing mostly using my own body as a surrogate. So, old habits break hard. So I tend to do that because I'm just so used to doing it.
That's amazing. I have to say, I don't feel the cramping anymore. And yeah, my hip feels good. It feels fine. I mean, I'm grabbing at it, so it might be sensitive because I am, but that's amazing. So let's talk about you're listening to this, and I'm not joking. We're doing this live, and this is unscripted. So you're honestly hearing an actual show and tell right now. I actually feel great. So if you want to meet with Dr. Blum, whether or not you're local, listen to this right now. Let me ask you, Dr. Blum, how can people get a hold of you? Do you have any special offers that you want people to know about, so they can get connected and start getting back to their best selves?
Well, I've got like 3 things that I'd like to offer your audience. If they're local to San Diego, when I do events like home shows and things, I'll do some work on some people, and I'll give them a coupon for $25. I'll have them come in. I'll do the same exam I did on you and Frank, and that's pretty thorough.
Oh,
and then I'd work on them like I did for you and Frank. So basically, I would say that that's probably in the neighborhood of a $200 value.
Oh, that is a deal. If you're listening, you better take this up now. Call right now. What else?
So that's only $25. Now, if they're not local, just like I did a distance session with you, I'm willing to give a free distance session if they're interested in maybe getting some more work in the future after we do that. And usually a distance session will take maybe 10 or 15 minutes. That I'll do free.
Okay.
Now, if they're a person who's having chronic fatigue, adrenal exhaustion, now this particular offer is only for people who are having that problem. What I'm offering is a triple your energy breakthrough session, which basically is we're discussing where they are, what their goals are, what problems they're having in life, and how lack of energy is stopping them, and just see if they're a good candidate for the program. And usually the conversation takes about an hour, and I'm willing to do that free. But obviously, since it's an hour thing, these spots are limited. But generally, as I said, it's only for people who actually have this problem. So usually there's not that many people calling in saying, gee, I have an energy shortage, please help me, and like that. But I'd be willing to do that.
So it's chronic fatigue syndrome, adrenal fatigue, and fibromyalgia. Is that right?
Sure. All of that I can help with. And basically the goal, if they do the program, is so that they can do these corrections for themselves, even if they have to do them several times a day until their body is functioning well enough. I even teach them how to do chronic maladaptive stress response, because that one is so powerful that if you're flat on your back and you're just exhausted, it may take a few hours or an overnight sleep, but the next day you're back up on your feet and you're able to go again because everything got reset. Right. Essentially what happens with chronic maladaptive stress response, it's just like what the words say. Your body is not reacting to stress in a normal way anymore, and you're just wiped out. This resets things and gets you going again.
Wow, that is amazing.
So those are the 3 things. Now, I don't know exactly when this particular broadcast is going to air, but let's give everyone 30 days from the date of the that it gets broadcast. And if they just use the code word, I thought long and hard, but I think we're going to use your name, Leslie, as the code word.
Yes.
And and that way I'll know where they're coming from, and if they contact me within the 30 days, we can do all of this.
Absolutely.
And I guess you want to know how to contact me. Now, I practice in Claremont. I'm at 4241 Jutland Drive, Suite 202. So that's Jutland Drive is Jutland, and it's Suite 202. And my phone number is
858-263-7716.
Now, my personal email address is alanmblum@yahoo.com. So Alan is ALAN, middle initial M like in Mark, Bloom, B as in boy, L as in Larry, U as in Usher, M as in Mark, @yahoo.com. And so I don't usually give out my personal email. It's not the office email very often, but for the chronic fatigue people, particularly, I'm interested in having them being able to reach me directly so that they don't get sidetracked. Now, in the line where you say what the email is about, please write triple your energy so I know what that's all about. Now, for those of you who want to contact me by email, but you're not the chronic fatigue people, just say what it is. A coupon, $25 coupon or free distance session. I just need to have an idea of what it is. Otherwise, because just like everyone else these days, I get deluged with emails and I can't read them all, so I delete a lot of them, but I won't delete the ones if I know who you are or what you really want.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, great. And even if it's past the 30 days, feel free to reach out to Dr. Blum. Just say, hey, I heard you on this State of Happiness podcast, code word Leslie. Can you help me? And he will find a way to help you, whatever specials he's got going on at that time. So please do not be shy. Reach out to him. Do not waste a minute. Get the help. You've got somebody here who's an amazing person who can help you on the physical level to address all of those issues that you might have. Maybe lingering ones that you just are not sure about. I feel like you, Dr. Blum, are an amazing complement to the work that I offer my clients and all of the listeners in the Happy Camper community at Leslie Inc. So I just want to say thank you so much. I can't wait to learn more from you. You've got a lifelong patient in my whole family. I even asked if you see kids. You said yes. And I'm going to see you again very soon, and I'm very excited about it. So thank you just so much for sharing all your wisdom on the State of Happiness podcast. And I hope that you'll come and be on the show again when we'll talk about other issues.
Well, I was just speaking to Dr. Dexter this morning and suggested that we might share one of your broadcasts and be a dual guest. In other words, sure. And, she's getting married, and if you haven't met her husband, he's a master of chakras and such. So he would be an interesting guest, too.
Yeah, Dr. Richard. Yeah, I actually was just on his show, Light News Radio. So if you're listening, check that one out. And that one's, I'm going to be sharing it on social media, so you can check it out. And that episode will be available to you as well. So yeah, definitely. You guys are a hoot. And one more thing is when you go, it's kind of like seeing a doctor, but you're also kind of like this amateur stand-up comedian, because we were laughing the whole time. It was really fun.
Oh, yeah. I've got all these jokes, like from TBM particularly, I use these little vials. They're little test tubes. I don't think I pulled one out to show you, but they look like a little test tube, but they're probably about an inch long, an inch and a half long, and they've got labels on them. Generally, they're my allergy kit, but some of them have whole techniques in them. Some of them have really bad pathologies like polio or smallpox or whatever. And or for instance, what's that one that people get bitten by Lyme disease, that type of thing. And so we have help for people who have all these really crazy problems. But anyway, I always say, when I pull out my vial, that it's a vial business.
Well, there you have. have it, folks. That's the show. But don't bump. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome, Leslie. Had a great time.
It's 2:00 in the morning. You can't sleep. Your mind is racing, thinking about work, your career, and your future. How can I get a raise? Why is my boss being so difficult? What am I doing wrong? What's keeping you up at night? If you had the answers to these questions, what choices would you make? Thanks to Leslie Inc.'s Happiness Decks app, Career Edition, you can have the answers to these questions. In less than 60 seconds, you can gain essential perspective and insight to the questions that are keeping you up at night. Download it today. Leslie Inc.'s Happiness Decks app, available in the Apple Store and Google Play Store. Get the answers you need and feel good about tomorrow. Get exclusive news and invitations today at leslieinc.org/app. Get the answers you need with the Happiness Decks app by Leslie Inc. A many thanks to you, happy campers, for joining us today on this episode of The State of Happiness. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join me at Twitter at Leslie Juvin, as well as follow at Leslie Inc. on Instagram, and talk with us at Facebook at Official Leslie Inc. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to leave us a rating and subscribe and share with a friend. As always, thanks for joining us, and remember, a smile goes a long way.